Greetings everyone, what is up with me again, Terran Prime 1, and apologies about the noise. Was not expecting for that to happen. I've been hearing an engine rev up out there, but and don't worry, I did see a doctor today. I won't go into full detail about that, but a couple of side notes. First, I know the lights are off, but that's only because a little certain someone over there is taking a nap. First time she's ever asked me to take a nap, because like we were watching Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, of a little more. She says, I'm feeling tired, so she was laid down to take a bit of a nap. That surprises me. That surprised me right there because she's never asked once to take a nap. Not once. This is the first time she's asked to do so, and she asked me if she could do it on the couch. I did take her seriously, so I went to the bedroom, played a mobile game, and I'm beginning to think, she's awfully quiet. Came back in here, she's now out cold on the couch. She's like, she's definitely tired. But also, wearing my new coat that I got on Christmas last year. And quite frankly, me and my wife called it. Like I mentioned it first. I was like, watch this, your father's going to get me another coat. He gets me another coat for Christmas. Man. I also do wish that doctor would have prescribed me something to take in order for me to get rid of my congestion, but I will admit I'm used to having congestion. It might take me a few weeks just to get rid of this stuff right here, but I'm not going into full detail about that right there. But I will say this. First things first, I do have quite a few coats. One from my dad that's gotten torn up. I still use it. And another one that was my granddad's. Another one that my father-in-law bought for me, I think back in 2021, Christmas time. And quite frankly, this is the second one he bought for me. And I also have maybe a couple more coats. And I'm just thinking, I brought a few coats as it is. Well, at least I have a heavy duty coat and a lighter coat for when it's cold out. But now, with the videos I wanted to do right now, I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. And I began to realize I have more of these videos to do. Recap videos based off my fan fiction work. First up, I wanted to do it based off of. Sorry, nose is running. Hang on for a second. Sorry about that. Runny nose. But now, Pokemon Hero Card Super Soul. I want to do a recap video on that right there. I'll be leaving a link in the description box below in the description box below for both fanfiction.net and Archive of Our Own. I know I rarely ever do something like that right there, but I'm going to leave a couple of links down there in case you guys are wanting to read any of these works. Okay. Now, Hero Card Super Soul, Age of Existence, because these are mainly stories. These are based around the stories I finished up, along with Transformers Cybertron 2, A New Beginning. Let's see here. There's also one based around Pokemon the Knife Kanto. I think there's a fifth one. I will find the disappearance. I'll have to do a recap video on that one as well. There's quite a few videos I want to do a recap on. I need to look at the camera and not over at the screen. This camera needs to be more centered, though. I'll admit that. I'll admit that right there. There we go. Got a bit more centered. Sorry. Itchy eye, itchy eye. Gotta love whenever that happens in a video. But now, I will admit, there's quite a few fanfiction works I want to cover, just explaining them and whatnot. But I want to try to explain Hero Card and Super Soul first, real fast. That's the one thing I want to try and do is explain Hero Card and Super Soul fast. Okay. Now, when I first began, before I began to really come up with the ideas for it, first things first, whenever I began thinking about Ash, all the stuff he was into and whatnot, and certain things that I began thinking about him in, I began thinking about him like this voided place, this weird voided place. I didn't really realize it, but if I began thinking about him in this voided place at times, I had no idea that this was really part of my ideas for my Heart and Soul fanfiction series. And it was in 2016 that I fully developed my but I began to develop my fanfiction series. Well, that I began to work on, like, I think the first 4 episodes. First 4. Because I was like, in the fall, I want to do a 4-episode premiere. I'd say episodes because, quite frankly, the fanfiction series is based right after Diamond and Pearl. Because my main thought is, like, I'm not going to go into what the Pokemon Company has created so far, because they, in all reality, I've been wanting to do a video project on this for quite a while. In all reality, that Black and White, XY, Sun and Moon, and Journeys are all different universes. And I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to place these in different universe. I don't want this to be a part of a different universe. I want this to be in the same universe, like in universe related. So what I did was, like, I began to, like, develop the idea for HeroCon Super Soul, because, like, I was beginning to think, like, with how they were making the TV series of X and Y, because, like, I began thinking, like, with how they were executing X and Y, and all along with Black and White, I just began to feel like this ain't part of the whole series anymore. This ain't part of the whole universe of the Pokemon anime, with all the major changes they've been making. And I'm just thinking, like, what can I do? What is my what is, like, my what can I how can I fix what they've done? Well, quite frankly, well, man, a lot of people say this stuff ain't really canon to the anime, but quite frankly, my fanfiction work is, like, continuing after the anime. It continues after Diamond and Pearl, because I'm cutting out the rest of the series and placing in my own series to replace the rest of it, to, like, explain a lot of stuff, as well as go back through a lot of stuff. Like, go back through a lot of, like, areas. Like, for example, the Ghost of Maiden's Peak. I decided, you know what, I'm going to do an episode based around that right there. I'm just going to do an episode based around that. Oh, scooch on over a little bit. Sorry about that. And quite frankly, if I begin to think, like, I will admit, that was not a part of my initial idea process for my Heart and Soul series. It was something completely different. Something completely different. But here's the reason why. I'm going to go back over here, back to the beginning, because, like, in the beginning of my fanfiction work of Heart and Soul, of HeroCon Super Soul, I began to think, like, I want to take my own series right here, my own fanfiction series right here, and, like, just revamp it. But the whole series was going to be completely different than what I had imagined, because with the extra amount of episodes that I put into my fanfiction work, were not going to be there. It was going to be completely different. It's only because of this. Like, because, like, for those of you who have managed to read so far, in the first episode, I was not fully sure what I was going to do, but then I began to develop the idea of, like, Ash meeting back up with his Pidgeot. He meets back up with Pidgeot. He finds out he has $2 and 1 son. And I'm like, that's an initial idea right there. That's an initial idea. That, like, Pidgeotto has a mate, and he's had 3 kids. And only one of them, Pidgeot's son, goes with Ash after Ash manages to pretty much move in the battle, but Ash has to reassure him that, like, you don't really have to challenge me. You just go with me if you want to do so. But I'm skipping the gun, but I'm just trying to explain things right now, because this is in the first episode. Because, like, in the first episode, as you all should know, of Black and White, Ash does travel with Jelly and Professor Oak, but I revamped that. I took that. I was like, I'm going to take that away. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put in something new, different. It plays it into where, like, this island has just shown up. It has just shown up. Oh, man, I had no idea of how to really explain that right there. But whenever I did that right there, as soon as I did that right there, I began to think, like, I began to, like, just go through the episode, just wing it, just do what have you, and it went with the flow. It just went with the flow. And Ash and Pikachu decided to go back on a journey through Kanto. And so he has to take on Furo, because Furo is still picking on the Pidgeys. Is still picking on them for some odd reason, because he wants to like say, I'm gonna be the ruler of you all right now. And quite frankly, I'm just beginning to think, I'm just beginning to think like, well, I'm not for sure what I'm thinking about at that point. I just wanted to like showcase Ash catching Pidgeot's son Pidgeotto, him taking him to train him, and what have you. And also, in another episode, y'all saw for y'all will soon read, features Serena. Serena, she sees Ash briefly, then she goes up to Professor Oak's lab, meets Miette, her rival. She doesn't like her because, like, I'll admit this, they're like a reflection off of Ash and Gary. They are a reflection off of Ash and Gary. They don't like each other. Sorry about that. And quite frankly, I decided to change up Miette's look a little bit, just a little bit. And whenever I decided to place it to where Serena would like get her first starter from Professor Oak, excuse me. And I know what you're all thinking. Why is she in Kanto? Why is she in Kanto right now? Well, I decided. Well, this was a lot of toxicity I pretty much had back in the day. Well, I definitely did have back in the day because I just did not like how the whole series was going. So I was like, this is where a lot of toxicity from me was applied into my fanfiction, because I was like, I don't want to introduce Kalos or Unova. Dumb decision from me. I meant dumb decision. And I'll be explaining that further from the Night of Kanto. We'll explain that further. But, like, Serena is living in Kanto along with Miette. Her mother's living in Kanto as well. And Serena is going off on her first journey. And she is now running away, and she has a bike. She has a bike, yes. Running away from I think, Beedrill. And Ash begins to hear her scream because she's been out there for a few days. He's been out there for a few days. And he manages to, like, save her after frying the Beedrill and accidentally frying her bicycle. Now, I'll admit this, like, I was thinking, like, what? Because, like, in the series, they normally have it where Ash fries the female protagonist's bike. He accidentally fried Misty's bike, May's, and Dawn's. And I'm just thinking, like, I want him to do another one. Serena's bike. I know they call her Serena, but I initially did think they called her Serena, so just go with it. Just roll with it as best as possible. So now, Serena meets Ash. And he begins talking to her, and he begins to help her on out and whatnot. And I'm just thinking, like, this is where I want to introduce, like, the mentor side of Ash. Because, like, in the mentor side of Ash, I'm showing that he's going from he's going to be leaving the mentor stage at this point. So he's helping her on out a little bit, but not by all that much. Because once he explains a few things to her, and once they get separated, because I had it to where Team Rocket does attack them because they want to try and get Pikachu one last time before they go off on their mission. And to be brutally honest, it's in this series right here, I had openly decided to say, I'm removing Team Rocket from the whole thing. I'm removing them. They might be in bits and pieces of it, but I'm removing them from the whole thing. Which reminds me of the first episode I was beginning to develop. Sorry. The first episode that I was beginning to develop was going to be based around whenever they were beginning to wrap up with the Diamond and Pearl, of whenever, like, Team Rocket was beginning to head back to Kanto and everything and whatnot. But whenever I saw that I was going to be revamping the entire episode, I was thinking, like, I don't want to revamp the entire first episode. Soon enough, I was like, delete all this, delete it all, and place down something completely different. So I revamped it to where Ash wins Sinnoh, they begin to return back to they begin to like leave the Sinnoh League, and Ash and Brock return home and whatnot. So yeah, I decided to revamp that right there, from one idea to a whole nother idea that makes things much smoother. Might seem at a quickened pace, but it's much smoother, gets straight to the point. Boom. Kind of like with the Ghostbusters elevator scene. Now, I am wishing that the doctor did prescribe to me something to take for my congestion, but I think I didn't let this run its course. But now, on with the episodes. Whenever I knew I wanted to get down to an episode of where Ash made up with Misty and he got separated from Serena. Now, I will say this. Initially, like, it was going to be a series solely based around Ash and Misty's journeys together throughout the whole region, because they weren't going to be with Serena all that much. Because, like, for those of you that have managed to read it, they do go on a bit of a journey together, and I use a bit of the ideas that I've had so far in the fanfiction work, especially of where, like, Ash trains with Weasel for a little bit on the water, and Misty just nods off against a tree. Originally, that was supposed to be Ash and Breezel. Well, actually, that was initially supposed to be Ash and Breezel, but oh man, I messed up on this one right here. But by explaining it to y'all, it had changed into Ash and Floatzel training, not Ash and Breezel, because it was originally supposed to be Ash and Breezel, but if I had them to evolve, then things right there changed around a great. Then the idea changed around a whole lot right there. And also, I'll admit this, like, the Remoraid bit, whenever I had Ash capture a Remoraid and he handed it over to Misty, well, from right there, well, for those of you who know, from what happened right there, I'll explain that down the line. Now, with that right there, I want to say this. I want to say this. With Ash and Misty traveling together, they do head to Pewter City in order for Ash to figure out what he wants to try and do to get back into the league. Well, this is what I began to do in order to explain about the Frontier. If I remember correctly, it's called the Frontier League. It's been a while since I've actually delved into since I've actually talked about this. To get the badge symbols. Ash goes throughout the whole Frontier League to get the badge. Ash goes throughout the Frontier League to get the badge symbols, and he finds out about it from President Goodshow, and only him, Misty, and Brock know about it. It's supposed to be top secret, just top secret. Sorry about that. I had to blow my nose. But now, with Ash having to learn about the Frontier League, he begins to learn and understand about that he needs to enter into the Frontier League in order for him to, like, get back into the Kanto League. Because as he said in the Diamond Pearl, as he said in the Battle Frontier episode of whenever he went back to like Giovanni's old gym, his former gym, whenever he went back to Giovanni's former gym, he explained that he already had the bat there. So I'm thinking, like, how can a Pokemon trainer get back into the league? How can they do that? Suddenly, I just began to think about Frontier, like a whole other league, a whole other area that they can go into. But from what the explanation is, it has to be top secret. Otherwise, a lot of trainers will want to go through there as well. I mean, I should have put down a list for me to do this, but I like to wing my stuff a whole lot. I like to wing it a whole lot. My wife would say, wing it like a Pidgey. Now, whenever I went into the development of that idea right there, in order for me to execute it properly, well, I had to her Bertha does come back. I think it was Bertha. Agatha. I think it's Agatha. Remind me in the comment section below of who it is. Whenever I did that right there, like, I decided to show that Ash was going to see how much knowledge and training he would need in order for him to do this right here. And soon enough, he would get a confirmation that he should go into this league right here as well, so that way he can get himself his badge symbols and everything. And soon enough, like once Ash shows that reveals that he's ready, he just goes off with Misty to go onto the league. And I debated this with my then girlfriend, now wife, if Brock should return, if he should continue on the journey with them. But we were like, nah, he's already been on plenty of journeys with Ash right now as is, especially since like he's wanting to stay home to learn to become a Pokemon doctor. So I was I began to think like I'm just gonna continue this on we're just gonna continue this on without Brock. Just let Brock stay at home while Ash and Misty go on this journey. But now at this point right here, Serena does return, but only after Iris shows up. And Iris, and in the series, Iris, she definitely, sorry, I'm thinking I see a vehicle go by sometimes. Iris, like, she shows up the episode after Serena vanishes, and she brings it back. Small argument happens. And Misty gets on Ash because he accidentally fights Serena's bike. And so from right there, like, they all decide to go on a journey together. Iris joins them and everything else. And I'll admit this, throughout the journey, I was playing around with the idea that Ash and Serena would be childhood friends. I was playing around with that idea. But it took me a good while, to realize this isn't going to work, because, quite frankly, I placed it into where Ash is 15 years old. Serena is like 10 years old. Sorry. So I was like, I don't want to go through that whole scenario right there. I don't want to go through that whole scenario. That's whenever the 5 episodes that I do, 5 episode arc that I do, that I did, comes in later on. But I've also decided to showcase these other areas as well. Where they begin traveling together, Ash and Misty they all go into the Cerulean Gym. Ash meets back up with Dawn, and because she's in the Cerulean Gym. I don't know why I decided to put her in there. I just wanted to put her on, and I think for her to see like a water ballet show or something. But it's more for Ash to meet back on up with her. And right after he meets on up with Dawn, right there, they all begin to have a good conversation and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. And like whenever Trip, I decided to put Trip into my fanfiction work as well. And for those of you who have read it, Trip does not like Ash. He thinks Ash is a weak trainer. He thinks he's horrible and such. But with what I decided to execute with Trip was one thing that I know a lot of fans will get confused on. I decided to execute to where like he's not going to battle Ash. I have no major intentions of him battling Ash, because like he may be technically Ash's rival, but excuse me, he thinks he's far better than Ash. Let's just put it that way. So, with how things are with that in that area right there, Ash officially, after Trip officially just shows that he does not like Ash, and wherever he takes on the Cerulean Gym, he loses to Misty. He loses to Misty because, quite frankly, he does have like a huge ego. He begins to think he's a far better trainer compared to Ash, because he thinks that with Ash, yes, I always confirm that, yes, Ash has won Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh. He's won those 3 leagues. He's going to try and win Kanto now. And quite frankly, like from right there, I'm showing that Trip is not worthy enough to take on Ash, because Ash is a very strong Pokemon trainer. He knows a thing or two about Pokemon training. Sorry about that. What about this? Looks like someone's about ready to wake up, maybe. That might be from my talking. But now, throughout the whole series, throughout the whole series that I've been doing up so far with the Pokemon anime, I've been experimenting with a lot of stuff in the series, including of where I decided to showcase Mega Evolution, but only briefly. This is where Team Rocket comes on in to like take Professor Sycamore's data on that. And what the hey, they even going out to the same island that Professor Oak and the men are at in order for them to like find out what's going on out that island. And quite frankly, with how things were going with Team Rocket showing on up and whatnot, and also with them going down to Hunter J's ship, I'll admit this: Hunter J was supposed to come back in the same season. Hunter J was supposed to make an appearance in the same season. Same with, I think, Dr. Young, because I began to have I developed an idea that many of y'all saw with Dr. Young's appearance. But quite frankly, I only decided to like. I've mainly decided to like do up Hunter J's like full on return much later on in the series, because there wasn't much room for me to put her into the first season. There's a lot for me to cover in the first season. And I'll open with this: like one of the things that like I didn't think about fully covering was like trainers coming and staying for a good bit of time. Main example is this: Paul and Zoe. They showing up. Zoe explains, like in that episode, Zoe does explain that like whenever she and Paul have been traveling together, she's beginning to get feelings for him. Y'all should know what this episode is. I decided to title it a rivalry reunion, of where Ash and Paul reunite, and Zoe is getting feelings for Paul. I'll be explaining this further later on in my own Pokemon series, and another Pokemon series, Pokemon League Chronicles. But it's in this new series right here that Ash and Paul do battle again. And this was supposed to be them appearing for one episode, then never again. This is supposed to be one whole season. But this more spent into a 3-season idea. So it's only because like with how Ash and Misty are traveling, they do travel with Dawn, Serena, and Iris. But they more have to separate because Ash and Misty are trying to keep what they're doing top secret. And once they reach this mountain area, you all know this mountain area. And now I will admit, I might have to make 2 parts of this video in order for me to fully explain things. They make it to this mountain area of where like whenever Ash first takes on, and I know I forgot to mention this, Ash does take on like Silent, Chili, and Cress for his first batch symbol. And then he takes on Chad, who lives inside of a mountain, like a mountain base, and it takes one whole episode for him to like maneuver these. Maneuver those mains and whatnot. I need to check on this spot on the back of my neck right here, on the back of my head right here. But he goes through the mountain. He goes through this maze, and according to the tests, you cannot use your Pokemon. You have to do it yourself. Kind of like with Danny in the Orange Islands. But after whenever he goes into the mountain and he takes on Chad, and I decided to have it to where like Chad has to fix up Ash's spine because he accidentally hurt his spine a little bit. And it's the following day that like Ash is feeling much better now because he's able to take on Chad. It took me a bit of time to realize this, but I wanted to base Chad off of the Kids Next Door character, Chad. I wanted to base him off of that character right there. So I did that right there, showing that Chad was really one of the best and strongest frontier leaders there were. Especially since he had a Lucario, because you have to think about this. Having a Lucario shows how strong one trainer can truly be. I need to look over here. The camera can't keep on looking outside. But now, whenever Ash does take on Chad, whenever he does take him on, he manages to like defeat Chad. He does manage to defeat Chad. Yes, he defeats Chad, and this is where the other episodes come on in. Plus Chad also contacts President Goodshow saying that Goodshow sent him to like one of the toughest frontier leaders there was. And quite frankly, that'll be explained later on in my series. But Ash and Misty and Pikachu go through a trapdoor in Chad's place, and they wind up at the bottom of the mountain, and they begin to explore the lands again. Now, this is where a couple of ideas come to mind. A couple of ideas that I developed. One of where Ash and Misty and Brock are in a cave, and it's raining outside. That instantly develops into an idea for me for an episode right there. Because like this is in like the credits scene of one of the Pokemon movies of where they're hanging out in the cave while it's raining. And so I decided to do it like that right there, and also I decided to do a sick episode right after that one. Ash gets sick, and Misty has to help take care of him, and there's a massive windstorm. Now this idea is based off of the X and Y series episode, because like I noticed how they decided to say like Ash gets sick, and a trainer randomly just shows up to challenge Ash. I'm just thinking like this guy doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So but like my main idea was to not introduce a trainer, but to introduce Ash being sick and everything, and Misty having to take care of him in a comic relief area from Psyduck. So yeah, like those two episodes were developed from two different areas. An episode from the X and Y series and a credit scene from one of the Pokemon movies. So yeah, that's where I spawned my idea from. Well, that's where I got my ideas from. Now, later on in the fan fiction series, like I began thinking about like having it to where Ash and Misty enter into Silvertown. I think it's Silvertown, for them to like watch Sermon's first contest. I had no idea this would do this, but there's like 5 episodes. One of where Ash asks Misty out on a date, and quite frankly, they meet up with the character. Now, I had a vision/dream about this character. I remember seeing Ash walk on up. He had a couple of things in his hands. I began to assume they were ice cream cones. And he looked confused, and he's like, what's going on right here? What's happening? I began to develop that idea right there. That idea right there, and from what a friend of mine on Twitter/X said, I can't remember her name. I'll put it in the description box below. She put down that the fact that Misty's had no other boyfriends. So I began to like develop an idea around that right there. I'll hang up for a second. Sorry about that. Tissues. Now, what if I begin to develop the idea of like Misty possibly having a boyfriend? That did not feel right because the person I know on there, she's right. Misty never even remotely had any other boyfriends. Giorgio wanted to be her boyfriend. Rudy in the Japanese version, wanted to marry her. And quite frankly, I think there were probably quite a few boys out there, but I began to think like, you know what? Instead of her having a former boyfriend, how about I just place into her guy thinks that he was her boyfriend, but they were never really together. They only hung out a good bit, but they were never officially together. So I went there with that idea. Then I began thinking like, what will I name him? What will I name him? What will I name him? I went through so many names until I thought of like Zach. And like it kind of pretty much like clicked with me, went with the flow. I put his name on in there, and I showed that like Zach is very much a deranged character, especially since like he thinks that Missy likes him, but she doesn't really like him. And so, from what I put in the series, like Donald does meet up with Kenny at some point. And Iris and Serena are in Silvertown, and Ash and Misty are there as well. But like most of them get to meet Zach. Like all but like all but Kenny gets to meet Zach. And quite frankly, whenever Kenny does show back on Up, he wants to travel with Dawn again. He says he wants to travel with her. And so that was I decided just to do that right there. And quite frankly, I had to explain that like Kenny decided not to venture through Johto, but decided to go back through decided to go through Kanto with Dawn. Excuse me. Because like he wants to like show her that he loves her and that he wants to be with her. And like, well, as we all know, he does keep a bit of a distance. He does mature and whatnot. He wants to show the Dawn, I want to be worthy enough to go out on a date with you. I want to be together with you and whatnot. Not only that, but also in this series, in these 5 episodes, I decided to introduce one other character. I did not think about introducing this character until after I found out his name, which is Calum from the Pokemon games. Now, as soon as I decided to introduce Calum into my Pokemon series, I placed him into the similar clothes that Ash has in X and Y, but his jacket is a long sleeve jacket compared to the short sleeve one that Ash has. And he does show up in Serena Silver debut whenever she begins to like go in for her first contest. But also, it's also during those that in the following episode that I bring in a whole bunch of other characters. May, Drew, May's parents, Max, a whole bunch of characters that have been seen for quite some time. But I'll admit this, these characters I was not thinking about bringing on it. I was not thinking about bringing them on it at all. But I'll admit, with May, I was thinking like, I want to bring back May. I wanted to bring her back. Well, I wanted to bring her back in the right way, not the wrong way. Kind of reminds me of an argument not an argument, but like someone that I know of on Twitter/X. I also know this person has a Discord. Not for sure about any other social media out there, but he got on me for, I would be honest, it more feel like it was like for no reason. He thought I was disrespecting May's voice actress, but in all reality, I do not want to disrespect anyone's voice actress. I do not. Because like, whenever I decided to bring back May, I decided to bring her back to show that she is grown up. She has become a top coordinator and everything. She and Drew are dating at this point. And and also with Max, I know Max's voice actress over in Japan decided to retire, so they said we can't bring him back. But as a side note, my main thought is like, why not just ask them to bring why not just ask those voice actors over there to go ahead and replace them? Why just ask the voice actors, hey, would you like for us to replace you guys since you guys can no longer continue on with the Pokemon anime? Just ask them that. Very simple. Very, very simple. Unfortunately, the guy that I was talking with got on me for not showing any kind of respect towards May. Whenever I love May and I love her, like the Japanese voice actress they chose for her. Not only that, but also I'll continue this on later on. Okay, now my wife is back. I did not know. I know I've been doing this video for at least 40 minutes, but allow me to wrap this up properly. Okay, now as I was saying before, with May and Max and those, like, I'll explain the whole video. Well, I decided to not only bring in Max, but also introduce Molly, and those two right there, I decided to show that they are going to become close friends. As for Max with Barry, however, I decided to play some comic relief with them. Because, like, I decided to place it down to where, like, it's like Barry wanted to hit on Max's sister because he seems a bit attracted towards her, and he's like, don't even think about it, she's already taken. There's like quite a bit of comic relief between Barry and Max right there. And also, like with May's eventual return in my series, I decided to bring her back on in because I wanted to go ahead and wrap her character arc on up. I honestly did because, like, with MSSS MSSST 206 got on me for my main thoughts and everything, and how I felt about the series, and how I felt like May should eventually have made a return and whatnot. But it's understandable as to what Japan does over there, because they don't want to replace voice actresses, unless, of course, from my understanding, from what he told me, like, or from what she told me, is like if the person over there passes away, they'll have to replace them. In which I'm thinking, like, I don't want that to happen. I would love to have the same voice actress or voice actor to, like, continue on with the character. But that does happen with them. They'll have no other choice but to replace them. But my main thought is, like, why not just take a couple pages from, like, well, like from what I mentioned earlier. Well, I didn't mention this, but like from also from the US, like, but more asking the voice actor and actress over there in Japan, hey, would you be willing to would you be willing to let someone else take over your position, so that or the voice actor / actress over there would be like, hey, can you guys replace me, so that way the fans can know what's going on with my character. Plain simple right there. Plain simple. But yeah, there was like a lot to discuss for this series right here. There's a lot to discuss, so I'm pretty much gonna be ending it right here real soon. But with May's return, well, with me bringing back in May, Max, along with Giorgio, Richie, Duplica, and Giselle, Joey, and so many other characters, Casey as well. I'm just thinking like, I just wanted to bring back those characters, but I'll do that for another video, since it's been it's over 40 minutes right now. So I'll do another segment of this video later on. This will be part 1. Don't know how many parts there are going to be to this. So if you all enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe with me and Richmaker. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Discord, and so on. And also Blue Sky. And until the next one, I'm Tip1, and I'll be signing off right now. So peace out.